I'm Bert Miller. Welcome back to Beyond the Bottom Line. I have another incredible guest today, a legend for the last 15 plus years with Bacardi and helping build the Bacardi team, Senior Vice President of HR, Mr. Scott Northcutt. Welcome, Scott.
Thank you, Bert. Great to be here.
It's good to have you here.
Yeah,
so
thanks.
I know when we had a chance to chat a little bit last week, we talked a little bit about how the business is trending and what's happening. And so we'll spend some time on that. We'll also spend a little time on how you're building your team and the culture and all the great things you've done at Bacardi over the last 15 years. So we'll spend some time on that as well. But one of the things that was popping up is really the consumer behaviors and how they are changing rapidly. They were already changing pre 2020, but it seems like things have accelerated the last 4 or 5 years. And so talk to me a little bit about how the generations, Gen Z and others, and their shift towards more wellness and alternative beverages, how's that affected Bacardi, and how are you guys addressing that?
Great observations, Bert. And having been in the industry and familiar with it, you've seen some of this. But I would say that COVID was great for the spirits industry and alcohol bev in general. Since COVID, though, the alcohol bev industry is going through one of its toughest times. In fact, it's the toughest time since 1995 for the industry. And I think part of what makes it different is exactly what you said. I mean, clearly, inflation and economics is impacting people, and spirits and other forms of alcohol beverage is often considered an affordable luxury, right? So inflation impacts it. But the other trend, why I think it's more concerning and why it may last longer, is this trend toward wellness. And so people are drinking less, but they're drinking better, right? And people are also being more careful about when they go out, what time they start drinking. So you've seen a lot of things come out in the industry. Beer's been doing it for a while, but we also participate with a zero alcohol product that is getting great reviews. It's with our Martini brand. This is a really good product, and if I had it here, I could let you sample it. You wouldn't know which one was alcohol and which one was not. That's how good it is. But the real upside to it, Bert, is it allows people who choose not to drink, either on a regular basis or for a period of time, to still participate in the ritual. They still get the bottle, they can still open it, goes over ice with a mixer, and it's a beautiful drink.
That's good, and it's interesting about the Martini brand. So the dynamics there and the cost. How do you maintain the quality? Because Bacardi, obviously, iconic brand. You don't want to ever put out a product that is not Bacardi quality. So, what's the work, and how's your innovation group go through the process of bringing out such a great product that is non-alcoholic?
Yeah, thank you. And first of all, on quality, you're absolutely right. We're still completely owned by the Bacardi family. So when any of our brands, be it the Bacardi namesake or any of the brands, it's very personal to the family. So the person who leads innovation happens to be a family member, and he has what I call the red phone. If quality isn't there and somebody's trying to cut a corner, goes right to our chairman, Facundo Bacardi, who is the great-great-grandson of the original Facundo Bacardi. So quality is it, and we have been known to, if something isn't right with a profile, we get complaints, we will destroy the whole thing. And that's well documented in history, rather than ship something out that doesn't meet the standards of what we think it should be, and particularly what the consumer thinks it should be. So very proud of that aspect. And so when the Martini came out, it took us longer to get it out. It took more time, more research, but the team did it and went through several iterations and had people tasting it, not just inside the company, but outside the company, until you couldn't tell a difference in it. And every bottle that's shipped goes through quality testing before we send it out. So we have a regular sample of every batch, and we protect that. And we wanted to do that with this product as well, because if people are participating, we want them to enjoy it.
Right.
And at Bacardi, our reason for being is to make moments matter. So, like if you and I are to go have a drink, that moment might be us enjoying each other, and that moment should matter. We should remember it and have something that's special about it. And often people use alcohol to make that moment matter. So we want this as a non-alcohol to do the same.
What strategies, if any others besides the Martini brand, are you guys implementing, or will you be implementing in this category?
Well, in this category, I think we're going to stick with the Martini brand in the near term, and we'll continue to evolve and see what's happening in the market. It is one of the fastest growing trends, but even if you add it all up, it's still a small number, and I think people are still learning, and we want to see where it's going to go before we do it with all of our other brands. But again, the feedback we get on this particular one is very good, so if we do more, we'll ensure the same level of quality.
That's fair, and I don't know if a lot of our listeners or people that actually watch the YouTube channel when we do Beyond the Bottom Line, I'm not sure they understand all the amazing brands that Bacardi, obviously they know Bacardi,
right?
But the incredible brands and how you've courted them and acquired some of those brands, you know, everything from Angel's Envy and Grey Goose and others. I'm not sure that the average consumer knows that Bacardi is the owner of those brands.
Well, thank you for that. And again, you know, when we talk about brands, I think sometimes people think Bacardi is just this massive brand. It is still completely owned by the Bacardi family. And here's a fun fact. We still use the original yeast when Bacardi was first created in 1862. Now it's going to be the great-great-grandchildren of that yeast, if you will, to make Bacardi today. And the recipe is still under lock and key. Only 2 people know the full recipe of how it's made. I'm not one of them, but our master blender and one of our other family members have it, but nobody else. So we protect that and treat it like a small brand. And the reason I mention that is when you talk about a brand like Angel's Envy or even a big brand like Patron, the reason I think people want to sell to Bacardi is because we are family owned, and you're more familiar with Angel's Envy. I think people trusted we would treat that baby just like they would treat the baby. And we often try to bring the founders and others into the company and keep them as long as they're interested, so that we don't lose the magic of what they created. We don't buy it and say, oh, now we're going to teach you how to do it. We believe those founders have found something really interesting, and they're committed to it. So we try to build that in and learn from it, help them continue to grow and give them other resources that they didn't have before. But I think it's allowed us to get brands that others wouldn't be able to get. And you mentioned Angel's Envy and Patron. There's Teelings, right, that we just recently got, or Illegal, Mezcal, that others could probably pay more, but people trust that we'll grow the brand the way they would.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think the other thing that's really important to understand around Bacardi and being a private company and the way you look at your business is the brands have to fit. You're not just buying and piling brands on top of brands just to create additional line extensions or additional shelf space, although the back bar is so important. But you guys are selective in the brands you bring aboard. They have to be complementary to the overall organization.
Yes, great point. And Bert, what we've done as a company is we focused on the premium segment of spirits. So we don't have a long tail of brands that nobody would want. We have really iconic brands, and they're either number 1, 2, in a couple of cases 3 in their particular category. But we don't run our business by category. We think of it more like a strand of pearls, because each brand is so special in where it is, and we don't lump them together when we advertise. We focus on that brand because the consumer might be different or have different moments when they want to consume something. But we really believe that having the individual brands stand for something and be the best at what we do, number 1 or number 2 typically, really matters. And that's why we have a great collection. So in this time when people may be drinking less or better, that top shelf can be more appealing to people.
And it seems to fall in line with what you're saying. People may be drinking less, but they're drinking better.
Right.
And you guys fit that motto terrifically. I mean, Bombay, Angels, Patron, Grey Goose. I mean, when you think about, the Doors 12, I love that, by the way. But the Grey Goose, if you think about, you guys really did an amazing job bringing the premiumization to vodka. I mean, vodka is such a crowded category now. And as we talked before, there's a lot of brands out there nibbling at some of the legacy brands. But you were one of the first ones to really elevate and bring that premiumization, early 2000s, I believe. So, and you guys maintain that posture.
And that's a great example. I think when Grey Goose came on the market, we bought that one and worked closely with the people on that. But it was the first really big super premium brand in vodka. And I can imagine if we were selling it to you and you were just learning about it, we said, hey, we got this idea. By the way, we're not going to use the normal ingredients, and we're going to make it in France, not Russia or Poland, not a potato vodka, but we're going to make it in France. And we're going to put a goose on it. And we're going to charge, $35, $50 a bottle, depending on the size.
Right.
You can imagine how that might go for a lot of people. But the Bacardi family really have a good vision for the long term of how to grow a brand. And I think that's why we've done so well with Grey Goose over the years, and it continues to do well. Patron was probably the tequila that changed the world in terms of tequila. I won't reference how you and I might have drank tequila back in the day, but it is now a much different drink, and agave is hot. And to your point, I think I said to you jokingly last week, if you're not really an A-list celebrity unless you have your own tequila today.
Exactly.
So, so to your point, though, we have a lot of other people fighting for space in that category. So we've got to work harder. We've got to work smarter to keep Patron out there as the brand of choice.
Well, yeah, and you're seeing that across the entire CPG landscape, and not just the adult beverage. The one thing that you mentioned, and I think I may already know the answer because you alluded to the family member running innovation. Yeah. But can you just elaborate on what his or her approach, or maybe the innovation team, in terms of innovating while still preserving the brand heritage and that identity that everybody's come to know about the Bacardi?
Yeah, thank you. Andy Del Rosal is who runs that. Terrific guy, and hopefully you'll meet him at some point too. Been in the company a long time and obviously knows the industry well. But knowing the heritage of each brand is particularly important, right? And so our master blenders know the history of the brand. So anything we do on innovation has to go through that test.
No, that's fantastic. And I do have a little bit of insight to the innovation. I won't mention the technology component here because I'm sure you guys are still working on things of that nature. However, I did get a chance to see how important and how professional, and also the rigor that your innovation team went through in terms of the tasting and the notes and making sure everything is on point is incredible. On the notes and the taste of the product.
Yeah, and almost Six Sigma type process that's followed, and it is, again, I'm going to say maybe even more rigorous in a family company than a public. I'm not saying the others don't do a good job, but the rigor and the time and the approvals that it needs to go through may make us a little slower, but when it does come out, we're 100% sure of that brand and the quality of it.
Well, when you're family owned and you have your name on it, that your name is who you are. I mean, that's what you carry, and that's your reputation. Exactly. So it probably does carry a little more rigor in that regard. So you've been the senior VP of HR at Bacardi for the last 15 years. You've helped build the team that's there today, some of the past, and build toward the future. Yeah. And Bacardi's had some of its better years, and a lot of that has to do with what we've already discussed, but also the talent you've brought into the organization. Can you kind of walk me through how you're able to foster high performance at Bacardi and have a culture, though, that has this, where people want to be a part of it as well and still deliver the numbers? Yeah,
and it's easy to say, right? But you've been around for a while, you know that's not the easiest thing to achieve. So we have a wonderful CEO in Mahesh Madhavan, and I've already mentioned Facundo, our chairman, who are instrumental in a lot of those things that happen. And I would say, 3 or 4 points, Bert. One is when Mahesh took over as CEO 7 years ago, we'd gone through some management challenges that are pretty well documented. We changed people fairly quickly for a period. And some of them didn't care for the culture the way it needs to be, because people say, what's more important, performance or culture? It's not a question, it's an and, right? And when Mahesh came in, we said, we got to get the culture back, we got to get the performance right. And they have to be hand in glove, because neither are sustainable without the other. So we focused on that. And look, we brought culture a long way. And last year, we were surprised. We got contacted by Great Place to Work organization, the parent of that, and found out that we had been named the 18th best company in the world, all categories, all geographies, and which was terrific, right? And in Great Place to Work, of 51 eligible countries, or 52 were eligible, and 51 of them we're already Great Place to Work. The other one, we just became eligible, so we'll get there.
Yeah.
But I say all that because that's important to us and we're proud of it. But going to your question, I was in Dubai at a town hall not long ago, and people asked me a question. They said, Scott, we've made such progress in culture. We consider it our superpower. Do you think we've arrived? And they're all looking at me with these expectant eyes.
Right, right.
And I had to say no. And I said, here's why. It's great the progress we've made, but we are going into tough times. And if we don't modify our culture to fit the performance requirements of the future, it's not going to matter. You have to have that performance with it. In the world, this was right after COVID, right as the downturn started. And we have to buckle up to that.
Right.
And we have to now think, how do we measure it? So the change really is taking all the Great Place to Work, all those ideas, and saying, now what do we have to build into it? And we said, we've got to be more performance metric driven, more discipline, and radical candor in terms of our conversations. And look, most spirits people are just great people. We all love them, right? And certainly Bacardi being family oriented. But you got to be able to have those tougher conversations when things aren't going well. And recently I've been saying radical candor also applies when you're doing something really well. So if your organization's killing something, I got to come and tell you that directly too, not just when it's not working, because that, recognition and reward also foster and accelerate performance. So I'd say it's the measuring, it is the discipline, and it is the radical candor.
Yeah, I always find it's always about the discipline. I mean, that's where things get lost.
Yeah.
Once there come times where things start to become, there's a little bit of a tolerance, and when tolerance starts to creep in many cases, I think we confuse tolerance sometimes where it's a confusing word, where we think we're probably being nice to somebody when really we're allowing the discipline to slip.
Can I add on that?
Yeah,
because
please.
I think the other thing you're doing is you're hurting the real performers when you tolerate. And what we're saying now as we look at the future and how we do this, having somebody good enough isn't good enough. We got to have great.
Amen.
And people who are, maybe they're good at the job. If you choose them, that means you've already made a choice. You're going to have to choose other people who are going to be more than good.
Well, that speaks back to talent. I mean,
Yes.
you're talking about the talent. You want force multiplier type of talent.
Exactly.
That's how you get more done with less.
Yeah, and I think that goes to your initial question about trends in the industry and so forth. And certainly the drinking, we're in tough times, so we've got to think differently anyway. We've got to reposition the organization. But if you just cut cost, it's not sustainable, and all you do is give people more work with less resource. So you got to change the organization and how it operates. And so it's going to require different models to do that.
Well, I love the performance culture. It's an and, not an or.
Yeah.
And it can be done. There's no question. So when you have the external pressures, and, you have the external pressures to your business, you have the internal pressures to your business. How do you line your internal culture to deal with the external pressures and within the industry? And the more I think about it, Scott, you're not just competing with other adult beverage companies, you're also competing with other even CPG companies.
Absolutely,
yeah.
Absolutely, and more are starting to kind of stretch into spirits or other kinds of activities for people, and whether it be cannabis or whatever. So the whole landscape has changed. I'm going to say the biggest thing we do, Bert, really is to focus on communication, and then all the tools that go with it to help people. So, and I'm going to say development, and two comments. First of all, on communication, one of the things we've done we've done a lot, but one of the substantial things is we've created what we call a leadership network. And so it's about 3 times a year we get on a big Teams call, Zoom for those that aren't familiar with Teams, and we have all the country managers and functional leaders throughout the world. So it's a big call, and we tell them not just what we're going to do, but we focus first on why. Why do we need to change? Here's what's happening in the industry. Here's where the storms are coming, and I think we outlined 6 storms that are coming. And some of it can be a bit frightening to hear if you're not used to such transparency in an organization. Then we say, so here's what we're going to do, and here's what we need you to do, so that it's owned by not just the corporate, but by the country manager as well, or their team. And then we give them talking points so they can do the same with their group. Most transparent communication I've ever been a part of, and it's a team approach in how we do that. But it's really fantastic in terms of what it delivers for us, in terms of what we can turn on for people and get their help.
Well, that style is so important. The key trigger, the lever there is helping people understand the why. And when they understand the why, your message then has a good chance of cascading.
I 100% agree, and what I usually say is, if we give people the why, it gives them the courage to do the what. Because what we're asking people to do in this environment is not easy work, right? It's challenging. It's not the work any of us enjoy sometimes, when you got to change organizations or reduce the amount of people or resource or whatever. Those can be difficult. But if you can go to what you said earlier and find out, these are tough times, got it. We can get slump-shouldered, or we can say, where's the opportunity? How do we turn this into a competitive advantage? Maybe we're not going to grow by volume, but how do we grow by share? So a lot of different opportunities there for us if you're willing to flip the script. But we want to do it with the whole group, and I'm saying at multiple levels. And the chats we have on that, the feedback, and now people that are leading programs and initiatives, because we can then capture what's happening locally. The second part I want to cover quickly is on development and capability. I would put our development work against any company in the world, any group, and it culminates in work we do with Harvard Business School. And I have the fortune to lead that. We're on our 4th cohort now, and it's only Bacardi people, and it takes 18 months to get through. Fabulous program. We've got great professors, but here's the power of it. In this 4th cohort, I made sure the other 3 cohorts got them ready, so they were mentally prepared and all that. And at the end of the first module, which is 2 weeks in Boston, they wanted to be able to do what we call pay it forward. They wanted to be able to give back more quickly. And we have a program related to cash management. So they took it on, took 6 markets, found additional opportunities than what the markets had. Then we put them with the markets, they combine, and now we're accelerating even further on this program because it's being owned by different groups. And rather than using outside consultants, we're tapping into our own talent.
Well, what you guys are doing, I mean, the individuals, when you hire the right individuals, they want to work on their craft. You, as a company, as an organization, are also taking the responsibility of developing those within their craft, not just specific to Bacardi, but overall skills.
Right.
And I think that's incredible.
Exactly. And the people, when they're doing this, we don't worry about their geography or their portfolio. They can come together, right? And sometimes if you're not directly in it, it gives you a better vision. But watching these cross sections of the team come together is terrific. Our focus right now is we again, I'd give us very high marks. We've won great awards on our leadership development, but now we're not going to do away with that, but we're going to shift the mix and go heavier into capability, because as things like AI and all these trends that come up, how do you have people able to do that? Or if we have bigger but fewer jobs, how do you prepare people to be able to lead that? Because somebody who's really good at this level, but now they have this, completely different, or using technology differently.
Well, it's going to require a couple things. Number one, the people that are capable of learning, the upskilling effort to make them capable in the trends that are happening, is going to be very important. And in other cases, you have to go external to get force multipliers to come in and take that next level.
Yeah, and if you don't mind, Bert, I do want to thank you for that partnership. Yeah. Your team's practical approach, the hunger, the urgency, and I'm going to say, unlike a lot of other firms, it feels like you're part of us versus a vendor or even a partner. You almost feel like what we call primos. And your rigor to check in and evaluate how are you doing, and also that radical candor to let me know how we're doing and the team. That's how we're going to get results. So if you don't mind, I do want to thank you.
And that's the key to the partnership. I mean, you may not even know this. One of our guys worked in your office a couple of days this week.
I heard that earlier. So, that's fantastic.
So that's partnership, guys. But thank you. Thanks for your trust. Before we get out of here, Scott, there's a question I always love to ask, and it's difficult to answer sometimes because if you're like me, there's more than one person who's influenced you. But who is the single person that has influenced you to not only in your personal, but obviously has impacted where you are in your professional life to do what you're doing at Bacardi and helping Bacardi become who they are today and who they'll become tomorrow?
Great question, but a very difficult one, as you say, and several names popped in my head. And one of the things I work hard at is to stay in touch with people who've made that difference. And my professor in undergrad stayed very close to him, even brought him on a big anniversary cruise with the family and friends. And he didn't know hardly anybody there, but, and unfortunately he's passed, but I stay in touch with from grad school, et cetera. But a person who I think of immediately with that question is when my career was just really starting to take off, and I was at Dollar General retail company, and at the time it was publicly held, but very tightly held by the Turner family, and Cal Turner Jr. was the CEO, and then became CEO and chairman while I was there. And he just kind of took me under his wing early on, even though I went in as the head of training and development is what it was called then picked up recruiting, and then the rest. And I guess I am proud. I was probably still the youngest head of HR that company ever had. I was 29 at the time, and it wouldn't have happened.
A couple of years ago.
Yeah, a couple of years ago. But what he did, spend time with me and push me, critical, not in a harmful way, but in a kind of arm over your shoulder, but very direct. Spend time, push me into things I didn't want to do, and actually part of why I ultimately left the company, he convinced me that I should do more than HR, and I wasn't sure I wanted to, but I didn't know I didn't, so I became a VP of stores. And he thought, you do that, then you can do others. But what I learned in that, first of all, I would give myself a C at best, but I also learned a lot of the things that I thought were brilliant ideas that I was leading in HR don't work in practicality when the manager's got all these other jobs to do. And I think that experience made me much better at what I do now. And one other time in my career, I ventured out and I ran a couple other areas, president of a small retail group, but I always come back here because I think I do this best. And so I got from him that push, those experiences, and then he taught me about the importance of having a purpose that is true to who you are. And I've had that since Dollar General, and he helped to unlock it. And on a personal level, he also pushed me to help understand the power of faith and how you lead and how you connect with people and communication. And I say all that as being so important. So 2 weekends ago, I was traveling back to Bermuda, and there was a storm, so I said, okay, I can't go straight back. So I went to Brentwood. I call him every 6 to 8 weeks anyway. He lives outside Nashville. So I said, hey, are you going to be around? Love to take you to dinner. So he's almost 85. And he calls back and says, no, don't take me to dinner. I want you to come and stay at my house with me, and we'll have dinner here. We'll just spend time. And we had the most beautiful 24 hours together, just talking, some about the past, but also about the future. Yeah. He still asks those penetrating questions like some of yours here that make you really think. So it was so important to me.
Well, I asked that question to a lot of people, and that's probably one of the best answers. I mean, thinking back to one of your professors, obviously Cal, and I think what you're really saying is Cal challenged you in a way that he was talking to you about the issues, what was going well, what was not going well, but he was not attacking you personally. He was actually bringing you in.
Yeah.
And that allows people, that's that radical candor you're talking
Right,
about.
and I think he prepared me well to be at this company I am now, Bacardi, and as he and I were talking, I think we were in the kitchen or on the back porch, he goes, I can tell you're having more fun at Bacardi than you even did at Dollar General. I said, yeah, I said, it's a big family, but I love this Bacardi family and what they've done, and it's been an opportunity to contribute at a different level, but I do owe a lot of that early seeding of how to work in a family company to Cal, so I'll always be grateful to him.
Wow, that's fantastic. Well, thank you, Scott, for being on the show. I think the time we've spent, the information you shared demonstrates why Bacardi is one of the most iconic brands, and so you're representative of that, and I enjoyed having you on the show.
Thank you, Bert. Great to be here.
Absolutely. This is Bert Miller, Beyond the Bottom Line, and I look forward to seeing you next time.